not right. Arcade by Duncan Lawrence is the awesomeness you just listened to right here on 92.3 Nigeria Info. Nigeria Info, I'm Sam Oracle Chinedu, hard facts on and running. Well, for this hour, we have conversations that matter, as we always do. The Senate on Wednesday called for the establishment of mobile courts for the trial and imprisonment of parents and guardians refusing to enroll their wards in school in compliance with the Universal Basic Education Act. This move is to address the 20 million out-of-school children in the country. The Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, specifically urged the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory to adopt the measures he used in Akwa Ibom State when he was governor, which entailed 6 months imprisonment for parents and guardians of school-aged children found on the street or on the farm during school hours. Now, this is where I need your help. If you lived in Akwa Ibom State when Akpabio was governor, I'd like you to confirm or refute that claim. The Senate made the resolution following a motion by Senator Idiat Adebule, APC Lagos West, titled Compelling Need to Tackle the Challenge of Out-of-School Children in Nigeria. And the numbers are rising. Is this cause for concern? Definitely. I remember one of the earliest times, maybe not earliest, when we were having this out-of-school children conversation, it was at 11 million. I still remember when it was 11 million. So if we're at 20 now in less than a decade, then it's definitely cause for concern. But is this the best way to go about it? Well, I'm hoping that the answers to these questions are readily available. My guest is a regular one. His name is Ikechi Wogu. He's an education consultant, public affairs analyst, and the man I run to have conversations around all things education. Hello, Mr. Ikechi.
Yeah, good to have you, Sam.
And it's good to have you.
Good to have you here.
Thanks for joining us. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. And you?
I'm okay. It hasn't been a while because I think we spoke not too long ago.
I think sometime last month.
On the front page.
Yeah.
Yes. So I would not say it has been a while. Well, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
So, is education a right or a privilege?
It used to be a privilege, probably some 40, 50 years ago. But right now, it's a right.
Okay. Let me rephrase and be specific. Is basic education a right or a privilege?
Basic education is a right.
Is tertiary education a right or a privilege?
A privilege.
Okay. So basic education is a right.
It's a right, yeah.
So if that's the case, if a person deprives you of basic education, they are infringing on your right.
Yes. But
okay.
We should be a little more broad-ended in our thinking. You know, there are many reasons why some children could. But I'm not saying it's a good thing, but there are the social factors.
Okay.
There are the economic factors.
All right.
There are the religious factors.
Religious?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'd like to hear that one.
Yes. Like, okay, this child, you know, like, I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking of the specific capture of government when they identify with this interest. Because my child is going to be a pastor, and I want to enroll him in a certain arrangement. Yeah. So that is not within the government consideration here. So when we talk about basic education, we're talking about education from the cradle, and then we need to also create definition as to where that line is drawn. Now they've said UBEC. So that is from what we used to know as nursery primary school to JS3. Right? Yeah. So after JS3, after your JSCE, it should also be reminded us that your JSCE should be some sort of a terminal point. So if you don't want to proceed beyond that, nobody is infringing on your rights. Okay, because elsewhere in the world, it's expected that you could be exposed to some technical knowledge, but you already have been exposed to communication, basic communication, which is another skill that opens you up to the world. And then it further opens you up to other styles of learning, alternate learning, informal learning, which could be considered as well. So I drop out of school after my JSCE because my father is a vulcanizer. I want to go and learn the art of vulcanizing. Now that's informal, but then it could be a skill set, a technical skill that could feed me in life. So we just don't want, when we're identifying with this, we just don't want illiterates lurking around the place. Okay, so when you also look at the social considerations, maybe social religious considerations, you also look at areas where they say book is bad. So but now the government addressing this shouldn't be stereotyped. They should be holistic in their view. It's not necessarily patterned around Akwa Ibom State, because even in Rivers State, I remember back in the day, the governor at the time, Rotimi Amechi, placed the same measures. He said, look, let there be arrests for any child who is out of school, who should be in school, any school-age child. And then the child picked up will be taken to his home, and let's find out from the parents. Then there was this hawking of sachet water and all that. So why are you exposing the child to child labor? So there were many acts and many laws that were breached at the time. So when you look at this holistically, you look at, multidimensional considerations, then you can come up with a position. But to just, roundly say that you're going to arrest, a parent could have been sick, genuinely ill, and there's really no one to take care of the children. And so the child maybe is attending to mommy or attending to daddy who's, invalid at the time. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a temporary arrangement. But you see, I'm looking at the expectations of basic education. I believe that a person should be able to be literate from their nursery primary education, which means read and write, have basic understanding. I read something somewhere where they said the education system in Japan did not start teaching kids, at crèche and pre-nursery what we do. They tried to make them have interactions, real-world interactions, how to greet, how to engage, even how to go to the market, do basic things before they now start having the classroom. And it's because when a person goes to nursery, primary, maybe secondary, there are some things we expect of them. We don't expect you to want to learn how to read and write in the university. So if I can get my child to achieve those feats, and maybe not go to school, but all the things that they could get from school, they already have, shouldn't I be exempted?
Now let's even look at this further, right? We realize that language has borderlines. And so when we even look at education, the same Japan you called, education shouldn't be looked at from the context of English.
Okay.
So imagine if I were schooled in my native art, my native science, okay? Am I not schooled because I am not within a formal setting? So let's separate the lines of schooling from education.
Okay.
And then let's also identify with the fact that there are alternate modes of communication beyond the English language. So that if we have better organized systems, I can live in my community and learn an art that is peculiar to my terrain and feed upon that art.
Okay.
Now, am I illiterate? But in the context of, the basic education, like we look at it, where Nigeria officially has the spoken language as English, then you could look at me as illiterate, but I'm able to feed, I'm able to fend for my family. I am schooled in an art that is marketable, that is serviceable. And so I am not illiterate. That is what happens. You go to France, they do everything, they are computing everything in French language. They may not say a word in English. In Japan, in Singapore and the rest of them, but you don't call them illiterate. And so there should be proper definitions and classifications.
All right, we'll take a break now. After that, the important question is prison time and appropriate punishment for deprivation of that right. Of course, Ikechi Wogu said it is a right to get basic education. So if that right is deprived, is prison time the appropriate punishment? A message here on WhatsApp to confirm Akwa Ibom State Educational Programs claim by Senate President Akpabio. Yes, he did a lot of things in Akwa Ibom more than basic education. The man is a role model for political leadership. He did a lot of human and infrastructural development. That's Vincent Odoy from Ahoda East. Vincent, thank you, but you didn't answer the question directly. Were parents of out-of-school children in Akwa Ibom seeing jail time for not enrolling them in school? I mean, thank you for this, but I need, a direct answer. So if you can send that, I'll very much appreciate it. After the break, we talk some more. Stay with us. Sam Oracle Chinedu here, and my guest, Ikechi Wogu, is still right here. Hello, Mr. Ikechi.
Yeah.
All right, so the Senate is calling for the establishment of mobile courts for the trial and imprisonment of parents and guardians refusing to enroll their kids in school in compliance with the UBEC Act. And I've been speaking with Mr. Ikechi about whether or not this is a step in the right direction. And you know how he answers questions. It doesn't give you a yes or no, but says many words that help you figure it out on your own. So we're talking about, the idea that basic education is a right. And you say, well, you can't just put it all in one box to say a person who deprives you of that right deserves jail time. But if we are gaining numbers as rapidly as we are, from 11 million to 20 in a couple of years, then we need something drastic. So is jail time for parents the kind of drastic we need to reverse this trend?
What was the fruit of that? Let's draw a line from Akwa Ibom State and maybe some bit of Rivers State, because the same rule applied. What was the gain of that? Okay, the effect of that at that time, and is it still effective now? Because you look at most of what we call out of school children would refer to the urchins.
Yeah,
they are Marjories in some cases. These are people who are just completely not interested in education, right? The street urchins, and they are the danger zone. You're driving along the road and then you see these young boys come from nowhere. They want to wipe your windshield. These are the people we're talking about. So if given an opportunity to go to school, they are not interested and they want to have more children and all that. Some of them don't even have any parents. Like a documentary was carried out in Cross River State within the same time under Ayade, okay, and it was discovered that they were a menace. No home, no face, nothing. Some of these ones are shipped down from the north. So when you see a young child, I mean, at 13 years, 14 years, shipped from nowhere, who do you arrest? So you threatening to arrest the parents is because maybe there's a face to the parent. And most of those serious-minded parents, okay, who live within the capture, okay, may not be so unserious as to get their children at home. But in Akwa Ibom State at the time, you know, there was a reality. You want a house help. You go to you.
Yes, I remember. You
go to Akwa Ibom.
Akwa Ibom did something about that. Yes,
his motive was to improve on the dignity of the Akwa Ibom State child.
Yeah,
and he worked on it, so it was effective. It became criminal for you to even send your child out as a help, as a domestic servant within school age. And you know, and he gave scholarships. So there were follow-ups, there were palliatives. You don't just say, I'm putting this law on the table and you must obey. What are you doing around it, okay, to actually sort other areas of need? And it worked. But Nigeria is a whole ball game. It's a different reality.
Something else to consider, you know, when you say street kids that don't want to go to school, I feel like, no, it's way beyond a feeling. It has to be a fact. A child at the basic education level does not get a say. They don't get to, I don't want to go to school. Because there's no way I'm your parent or guardian. You live under my roof. And for nursery, primary, and secondary, you're saying you cannot go to school. For tertiary, you know, okay, I want. So it's not the kids not wanting. They never grew up in a space where to. And so they have become people who can now say they want to, because, you know, I
try to do that. So I'm on the streets and the young man comes, in school, why not school? And then they'll tell you all sorts of things. In some cases, you see the reality of them moving from the village to the custody of some guy who turns them, converts them all of a sudden to and train. That's an abuse of their rights. Yes. And those can be arrested. Okay, but you have those who were orphaned very early, and nobody took responsibility for raising them, and then they grew up in the street somewhat, or even and to some this job, even as decently as cleaning a windshield. I've also willing to help, individuals willing to help, and these was the ones that will run away. Okay, so that's why I say in this is now these I'm talking about the level of who have grown through life, but that they are making quick money. Some 100 naira, 200 naira, I feel it's relative.
I mean, I'm all for education, and value has given me. It's not something I can measure, but let me know. If I start seeing that kind of money, don't know if I'll go to school. You know? So that's why those kinds of gratifications have to be delayed.
They have to be delayed.
It's not yet.
Amply profiled.
Let's hear 08179230002. Very simple question. Ending simple as: do you think that this policy work? Is it meant an appropriate punishment for you to enroll a child in a school? Please start radio as you call. Go straight in, so we can enjoy the conversation as you listen. You can also drop your comments on those platforms. Samuel on Facebook. I think policy more problems. They will announce free education, but no material teachers. Let them put education in a standard way and stop all these unnecessary policies. That's what Simon says on Facebook. And Praise says, Senate. People will know if you provide solution. Is that all they can come up with? Listen, Praise, I understand that it's easy to attack, government and all of that. But let's be serious. Any responsible government that has on their watch the number of out-of-school children increasing that rapidly really has to do something. You might not approve of the methods, but, attention has to be given to that sector. Allah calls from Eleme. Good afternoon, Ola.
Okay. Sam, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
Great.
All right. Please go ahead.
I do not think capital punishment can work like that. Now, you have to consider a lot of things like your guest has said earlier on. Now, when you look at a religious body like a OPM that is giving free education, they also augment it with uniform, books, and feeding at least morning and afternoon. Now, if you're going to take the child off the streets and force their parents to push them to school, even when you go and see that the mother is looking like someone that is suffering, the family are really suffering, and these children are only helping themselves and their parents in order to raise money to feed. Now you take them off the street. The parents are not as young as you and I in order to help ourselves. But then, how do you intend feeding these children? If you want to force it and make it a must and a law, then you have to make provision for at least their breakfast and their lunch. Let's assume that when they get home, they can skip the night one and come back the following day to get something. In that way, you can say this thing will work. Because the basic thing every family needs is just feeding. That's my own thinking.
Ola, I mean, it's hard to argue, but feeding is the responsibility of the family. Even if the government does not feed you, at least, let's not make the government give your child food.
Bros, the system is so bad. It's bad that we can't even feed, we adults can't even feed themselves, and then we find ourselves with some children and so on like that. So,
thank you, Ola. But when you say we find ourselves, those kids were not sent to your home. Something happened. But I get it. I get the point. Daniel from Imo Gates. Good evening.
Good evening, Oracle Chinedu.
Good evening.
Chimke Daniel Imo Gates Ozuako.
Go ahead.
How can our government that has crippled, because yes, I will be responsible. A coach is responsible when his team is not doing fine. So our leader, when they are not doing well, how can you now put the blame or prison somebody who is unable to send his child to school? I don't get all this. Is it because the law will always be enforced on the poor people of Nigeria? In the first place, who even impoverished us? I don't get all this. You will leave somebody that is responsible and begin to punish another. This is the reason why all this grammar we speak. Child abuse when somebody is sucking pure water. Do you know that some of them do that to survive? Because one must eat to survive. And you now say child abuse. In fact, I don't know how developed countries, civilized countries, how they look at us. Look at our poverty level today. I don't get it. I am not happy with this statement that you will imprison somebody who cannot send his child to school. What is happening in the north today?
Okay.
The children, those ones that were kidnapped, will it not have been better that their parents kept them at home?
Okay.
What are we really talking about?
All right.
Well,
thank you very much, Daniel. Your frustration is noted. But, when we have conversations and say, I wonder how people look at it doesn't matter. We have a country to fix. They have their problems as well. So let them look, however, while we try to sort our problems. Adekunle from Elelewo. Hello, Adekunle.
Hello, good evening, Sam.
Good evening. How you doing? Oh, my goodness. Okay, Adekunle, please call back if you can. JJ from PH Town. Hello, JJ.
Yes. Oracle, I greet you this afternoon.
Good evening.
Yes, and I greet your guest. Oracle.
Yep.
If we decide to remove all the children that are on the street now and take them to government school, will it contain?
Will it contain?
How many schools do we have government owned? How many children do we need in those schools? Some of those schools are even overpopulated right now with this number of people outside. Am I right? Now, why is it that the parents couldn't send them to school? What are the conditions? Now, if those conditions are still there, is the government taking care of those conditions? I remember while growing up in Bender State then, You have Ambrosali giving us booze, giving us pyro, giving us so many things. The government want to provide that. It's not just about coming to arrest people that you want to arrest them. Now, if I refuse, God forbid, to send my children to school, the prison you want to put me, what is the population of the prison? Is it, Andrew? Sam.
JJ. You are creating more problems to the existing problem. So
how?
So first of all, I believe, right, that if we do what we are supposed to, there should be enough schools to take as many kids as we have.
Exactly.
Yes.
So do you put the cart before the horse, or the cart before, or the horse before the cart? So how many schools have you built in the past 10, 15, 20 years that now contain these children? Are the schools available and the children are not going? These are the issues. So why is it that the parents couldn't afford sending them to school? Are you now building things that the parents will now work to make sure that, I know I have 2 kids now in nursery and primary. Sam, it not come cheap, I tell you. Is it biscuits? Is it juice? Is it this? Is it that? Let's also assume that I decide to withdraw my 2 now because government is doing very well. I add them to the ones that you're counting now. How will you feel?
Hi, JJ.
So, as far as I'm concerned, let's increase the prison, let's build more schools so that we will know where to go. Whether it's the cock or before the end or end before the cock.
Thank you, JJ.
I think about.
Thank you very much. Muriel calls from Akrika. Good evening, Muriel.
Thank you, Sam. Good evening.
Good evening. Please go ahead.
Sam, yeah, honestly. Now they want to present themselves as if they love education so much. They want their people to be educated. Sam, I will ask, so what end? Now, if after meeting the UNESCO benchmark when it comes to quality education in the country, Sam, if you look at the budget, these relevant people, they appropriate more to those things than education. Our government do not, they are just hypocrites. I think they love education so much. Now, Sam, you want to arrest people. So how many will you arrest? Do you know that the people who arrest are so much? Do we even have jail enough to contain this person? Do we have enough jail? Then we need to begin to build enough jail. Now they said, not prison, sorry. They said that they're going to open a prison. Trust me, I don't want to go there. Go to a government place. You can't even look at the good. Look, I just say they are a bunch of hypocrites. Free education, the people cannot even fear. I would ask them to say that if you cannot afford a child in a private school, please to us.
All right, Muriel. Thank you very much. I have to move on now.
They're going to tell me I cannot even. What if I can't even feed myself? You made the economy so hard. That high.
Okay, well, everyone and their mothers against this move. Ezeken from Ubimini. Hello, Ezeken. Good evening.
Good day, Oracle.
Good evening.
Oracle, if I may ask.
Ask.
What age bracket are they going, or did they make compulsory to be at school? And what preparation of facilities have they kept on ground to make sure that all children will be at classroom or in classroom before they will talk of how to handle the parents? Presently now, what effort have they been making? The private schools had hijacked and swept off all the pupils in the public school because of the people trying to make the law, which I see as a radio or media proposal. Let me put it that way. So these people sometimes they see or they make us to know that they are here because of us. They are only mocking us, Mr. Oracle. These politicians are mocking us. They know that we have less privileged people. How about the rural areas? What precautions, what measure, what length will they take to make sure that the people in rural area will mostly benefit from the educational sector according to their proposal.
All right.
Let them tell us what we need to know and what we want to know. Let them prepare this country for us to be a conducive place for us to stay. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Ezekiel, lots of people, are not for this. They believe that some things need to happen first before, the Senate makes a move. I have more questions for you, but I'd like to take the comments I have on different platforms. We're live on Facebook and Twitter. You can watch as you listen. And this is from Facebook. Lebari says, what educational policies have worked in Nigeria? And Chile Edwin says, our major problem in Nigeria is putting the cart before the horse due to the fact that the unqualified is on seat. And I'm wondering who wouldn't want their child to go to school. But the solution here is deliberate policies of making education free, just like the former governor Rotimi Amechi did during his time. Now let's go over to WhatsApp. Sam, the policy introduced to jail parents of out-of-school children is one we are waiting to see be effective upon proclamation, because this issue is now on the rise. To an extent, it will tackle the problem and bring it down to the barest minimum. Also, the government should work the local government to make sure every home that has a child that is supposed to be receiving basic education is enrolled and attends regularly. I know the impoverishment is also a factor to consider why a child is out of school, but the reason is too shallow. Okay? Nelsie says, Sam, our leaders are good in making laws without putting issues in perspective. The economy, insecurity, etc. are certain factors that may hinder basic education for many families. That's Nelsie from Port Harcourt. And Chukwuemeka says, if government dares to imprison such parents, it means the government, like bride price collectors, don't want people to have sex or marry. What government can please do is to get the military in the barracks to take those unemployed people to the farming sector. Okay, of which machines clear forest, planting and processing. I don't know where you're going, but I'm curious to get there. We have so much land, and yes, we shouldn't use it all. And to the brilliant citizens, we should please have more affordable schools so that it's possible to go. Oh my, this message is not easy to read, but Chukwuemeka, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Sam and the guests in the studio. I remain Frank from Were. It's not all about establishing mobile courts for out-of-school children. What will be the measure the federal government takes to help parents who do not have money send their children to school? For example, Governor Rochas did it during his time by providing free education from primary to secondary. 300 plus pupils are currently in kidnappers' den in the north. Do you think those that escaped would want to return to school? That's an important question. Parents are in school, who would take care of this? Who would be out of what have they are out of school because they are hungry or can't access schools in areas? And yet is asking. Now, Ikechi, this is soft power from the UBEC Act. And UBEC is every out of primary and secondary school free, compulsory, and universal basic education. Must. So if you are not doing this, you're breaking the law. Every government in Nigeria, so is it safe to conclude that it does not provide free and universal basic education? It should not demand citizens that education.
Yeah, it's a give and thrown up very intelligent issue. I'm going to bust a lot of the perspectives here. Now, just like most of this was probably 2013, when the record was provided by UNESCO. 11 million out of school children, and this is 2020. I'm free, maybe public holiday, midterm break or something. I think it's true. The children are playing, some are leaving. You know why? Because there are no teachers to teach them.
Oh my!
So government has not provided. I mean, we've been decrying this. We have one teacher sometimes to take care of 2, 3, 4 classes. Government has still not addressed that. Okay, we don't have sufficient classroom spaces. Okay, to cater to the demand, the growing demand to including God. So where government has failed, that recipients, because we still have children in Nigerian schools learning on that within the capture of out of school or in school children. Okay, so you begin to ask a lot of questions. It's more on the burden of government than even on the parents themselves.
Okay, we're getting to the very end of this conversation. I'm still taking your thoughts on this. 08179230002. Prisons of our school children for basic education age. Please on the radio. Juanita West on WhatsApp says, good evening, Mr. Sam and the gentleman in studio. There is need to ensure provision of quality education to Nigeria's children. Education is a joint responsibility of all to eradicate mass illiteracy in Nigeria. We all need to protect positive education. Juanita Clinton. Juanita, you always got there. Preacher of hearts. Whenever I hear free fair, I always put election. So, almost did. SF says, how far ones that went to school that were kidnapped as the Senate about bringing them back? SF Smart from Agri Road. I mean, lots of people have talked about the security situation, and two things to consider. First of all, yes, if my child is kidnapped in school, it's going to be very hard, to send them back if they regain freedom. And we must understand that the terrorism move in Nigeria is an attack on education, because Boko Haram literally translates to Western education is abominable. So, yeah, that's another important factor. Security has to be provided. Okay, I'd like to take one or two calls before we wrap it up. 0817-923-0002. 0817-923-0003. WhatsApp is 080-903-06-416. Turn off your radio as you call. Oracle, the penalty is not appropriate. It is wrong. The system of education and definition given to education in Nigeria is wrong. Education is more than passing through the walls of a school. Compared to China, Korea, India, and the Middle East, we believe if you can't speak English or you can't earn one educational certificate, then you are not educated. No wonder development in our area is poor. We need to talk less on certificate, but go to certificate. Joe, I mean, you're right, but you kind of digress, because that's not the focus. To solve any problem, you must tackle the problem from the root. Why this issue is brought now, where schools in some parts of the country are considered unsafe vicinity. Some families find it difficult to feed, let alone buying school materials. And that's from Andy Mayo on WhatsApp. Mr. JJ seems not to appreciate the serious position he occupies in River State. Oh, really? You think so? Okay, so you disagree with his views. Okay, you didn't give us your name, but you gave your thoughts. Okay, so Mr. Ikechi, what would be the solution to the sustainable? Let's have bullet points on the part of government, on the part of parents, and maybe even the kids we're defending.
I'll just mention three things.
Okay.
Planning, coordination, that's also implementation, right? And then supervision.
Okay.
So when you have planned, the government needs to go back to the drawing board, as they always do, right? And get a sense of, the population and the facts.
Okay.
And ask themselves what needs to be done. That's operationalizing their plans now. And then you sell that idea to the parents and everybody. If incentives need to be given, like free school feeding and all that, at that age, that is an incentive to want to go to school, right? Yeah, everything that needs to be done, make sure there's adequate provision of teachers, the same UNESCO standard, pupil to teacher ratio follow through 1:25. Classrooms are built, complete facilities.
Is that a ratio 1:25?
Yes, that's the UN standard. It's abused, but it can be overlooked. If you have 30, if you have 35, okay. What is important is basics. Your teacher should know you by name, right?
Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah.
When you have done your own part, then you can come in. No parent will be excused at that point. Then you make the arrests because you see that this father, this mother actually has a problem. But if you've not done your part, I mean, you don't have any justification to begin to wield the big hammer on anyone.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ikechi. I agree. Your teacher should know you by name. I imagine a kid going to a teacher, "Sam, your class," and the man say, That would be as always, thank you, sir, for availing yourself. The value you give us, we never take for granted. Have a wonderful day, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, 5 o'clock happens in 3 minutes. The news follows. After that, I'm asking important questions, as I always do. In the case of an emergency, do you know the appropriate authorities to call? Stay with me.